Another half-pound of pressure is applied to the trigger, firing the black-tipped .308 caliber projectile into a Thraxian soldier pointing back at the sniper's position. The heavier round easily pierced cleanly through the scaled forehead of his target, causing it to collapse. A vast metal barrier obstructs his scope's view. It descended abruptly, brutally crushing the body of the target he had just eliminated. The sniper raised his eyes from the scope and confirmed his sight. What he thought was a wall was, in fact, one of the three enormous legs of a colossal mechanized war machine. Its joints were made of Thraxian alloy, groaning under the tremendous weight as hydraulic systems hissed and released steam into the combat zone. The gigantic limb alone overshadowed nearby vehicles, casting a profound shadow that enveloped the Thraxians beneath in darkness. The mechanical behemoth swiveled its torso with a grinding of gears and servos. Its chest plate bore the scarred insignia of the Thraxian invasion force, worn from atmospheric entry. The sniper's scope caught details of its imposing frame. Angular armor plates overlapped like scales, steam venting from joints, and scorch marks from previous battles decorating its hull. Its right arm housed a plasma cannon that crackled with contained energy, casting an eerie blue glow across the battlefield. The weapon's barrel alone measured wider than a person, capable of reducing a house to ash. The left arm projected an energy shield that gave small pulses of blue energy. The mech's head tracked the sniper's position with unnatural precision. Red sensor arrays glowed through armored slits, scanning and locking onto targets. It stood nearly as tall as the three-story CTC building, its shadow engulfing the entire street. "Target acquired!" The machine's external speakers boomed in a distorted Thraxian dialect that made the ground shake. The plasma cannon swung toward the sniper's position, energy building with a high-pitched whine. Blue lightning arced between focusing rings as the weapon charged. The sniper yanked back from his rifle, abandoning his position as the cannon tracked his movement. The tipped-over bus, where he'd been perched moments before, erupted in a blinding flash of superheated plasma, raining molten debris onto the street below. The mech's hydraulics hissed as it adjusted its stance, crushing vehicles and street fixtures beneath its massive feet while preparing for another shot. "They brought a fucking mech!" The sniper reported frantically into his radio, his voice crackling with static. He darted toward another abandoned bus, ducking low as plasma bolts from. The Thraxian soldiers sizzled through the air around him. Their shots left scorched holes in the vehicle's rusted metal frame. Yanking open one of the sliding doors, he scrambled inside the bus, glass crunching beneath his boots. Through a spider-webbed window, he spotted the advancing Thraxian soldiers, their armor glinting in the fires of the burning city. He pulled back the rifle's bolt and slid a fresh round into the chamber, brass from the spent casing tinkling against the floor. Taking a deep breath, he forced his racing heart to slow. The chaotic view through his scope gradually steadied into a familiar figure-8 pattern. At the bottom of his exhale, time seemed to freeze. His finger squeezed the trigger. The round punched through the fractured window with a sharp crack, then tore through the sedan one of the Thraxians was using. For cover. A spray of blue mist confirmed his shot as the alien soldier toppled forward, slumping lifelessly over the car's hood. "Understood, Rammer. Team, back outside now. SWAT 1, get the fuck out of here," Sergeant Adams barked. The molten mass, still red from the plasma cannon shot, felt warm even with him being several yards away from it. Just one did that, he thought. To himself. Fuck. "Sarge, I'm here!" A familiar red cross quickly cut off his view of the melted bus. The medic places his hand on the sergeant's shoulder, the sudden touch and jolt allowing Adams to refocus quickly. The lieutenant's stable. "Where are the civilians?" the medic asked, scanning the area until he spotted a person sprawled on the concrete next to a crouched one. As he pivoted and began to step forward, something yanked at his sleeve. That one's dead. "Where's SWAT 1 Williams?" the sergeant questioned anxiously. More shots echoed as his squad emerged from the CTC building, bullets and energy blasts crisscrossing through the air in deadly exchange. "Sarge, how do we kill that fucking thing?" the bearded SWAT officer shouted from behind a concrete pillar near the CTC building. He discarded an empty magazine from his HK-416 and released the bolt, firing several more shots at the advancing Thraxian soldiers, dropping 2 more of them. The breacher rushed past him and moved toward Sergeant Adams. The mech's hydraulics whirred as its massive frame pivoted. The plasma cannon's focusing rings spun up with an otherworldly hum, building to a crescendo that made teeth rattle. Blue energy crackled along the barrel, casting strange shadows across the battlefield. "Get down!" Adams screamed, but the warning came too late. A blinding flash erupted from the cannon's maw. The plasma bolt struck with devastating force, vaporizing the pillar, the bearded officer, and a massive section of the CTC building's facade in an instant. The explosion sent a shockwave that knocked Adams off his feet. Concrete and steel rained down as smoke billowed from the gaping hole left in the building's side. Where the bearded officer had stood moments before, only a blackened crater remained. The edges of the hole in the building still glowed orange, molten debris dripping onto the street below. The acrid stench of ozone and burning materials filled the air. Adams stared at the destruction, his ears ringing from the blast. The image of the officer, there 1 second, gone the next, burned into his mind. His hands trembled as he gripped his rifle tighter. "Holy shit," the medic whispered, pressing himself flat against what remained of their cover. "That thing just—" The mech's servos whined as it realigned its cannon, preparing for another shot. Its red sensor arrays swept across the battlefield, searching for new targets among the chaos and destruction. Sergeant Adams remained frozen in disbelief. His thoughts surged and crashed into one another like a massive pileup on an 80 mph freeway. He lacked any preparation for this. After 5 years as a beat cop and a college graduate before that, he wasn't a seasoned veteran, and the weight of that truth began to fracture his mind. That's when the breacher shoved past the sergeant, nearly knocking him down. He was sprinting directly towards a small minivan that still had its lights on, indicating the keys were still in the ignition, likely the van the 2 fighters came in on. He quickly lifted the hood and placed several blocks of explosives around. The engine block and on top of the hood itself. His eyes were focused and calculating. "What are you—" The sergeant was cut off by the breacher on the radio. "I'm stealing the playbook from a few fucks in Afghan, Sarge. Cover me!" Adams snapped back to reality, raising his rifle and laying down suppressing fire. The rest of the team followed suit, their weapons blazing at the Thraxian soldiers. The coordinated barrage forced the aliens to duck behind cover, buying the breacher precious seconds. A plasma bolt streaked through the air, catching an officer in the chest. The officer's tactical vest melted instantly, his body crumpling to the ground with a sickening thud. The acrid smell of burned flesh and Kevlar filled the air. Adams is now down to 4. The mech's cannon hummed to life again, targeting their position. Adams dove behind a concrete barrier as the plasma bolt obliterated the spot he'd occupied seconds before. The near miss left his skin tingling from the heat. "Almost done," the breacher called out, his hands moving with practiced efficiency as he connected the final detonator wires. He slammed the hood shut and jumped into the driver's seat. The minivan's engine roared to life. Tires squealed against pavement as the breacher floored the accelerator, steering straight for the mechanical behemoth. The mech's sensors tracked the approaching vehicle, its weapon systems adjusting to acquire the new threat. A burst of plasma fire from a Thraxian soldier tore through the van's windshield, shattering glass into 1,000 glinting shards. Sergeant Adams and the medic exchanged glances, their expressions shifting to mounting horror as the grim reality set in. The breacher wasn't going to make it out alive. Smoke began to billow from the jagged remnants of the windshield, and the minivan, now a crippled hulk, started drifting away from its intended target. the precious explosives inside rendered useless. Adam's fists clenched tightly, frustration boiling within him as he helplessly watched their last chance at stopping the mech slip away, second by agonizing second. "SWAT 1 on scene! IM 1042! The driver of the armored MATV's voice crackled over the radio, cutting through the panic. Then, the distinctive rumble of a diesel engine sliced through the chaos of battle like a knife. The armored MATV burst from a side street, its imposing frame slamming into the side of the minivan with a bone-jarring force. The impact sent the vehicle careening directly toward the mech's enormous legs. Metal screamed against metal as the two vehicles collided with the war machine's base, a cacophony of destruction ringing out. The resulting explosion lit up the battlefield like a miniature sun, illuminating the night for a brief moment before darkness reclaimed it. The shock wave surged outward, forcefully knocking atoms off his feet, his ears ringing from the thunderous blast. His body crumpled against the side of a nearby bus, the medic tumbling down beside him, both men momentarily disoriented as the world around them faded into chaos. Everything goes black. "Enjoy another story." "Yes, Lord Admiral," said the facilities. "Warden, these are the clones that passed the selection process. All other clones and donors have been purged." "Will they be up to the task?" asked the Admiral. "Most certainly, sir," came the reply. "They excelled in all areas of testing and most notably have a near 94% obedience rating with approximately 5% of disobeyed actions resulting in improved mission efficiency." "So they still disobey?" "Not entirely. They understand their orders completely and work to the goal. We believe their donors' past experience has given them an understanding of real warfare that our facility cannot replicate." "Excellent," the Admiral smirked. "When will they be ready?" The Warden checked his data. 135 home cycles. "Sir, 12 clones stood at attention in front of the two aliens, their silent mantra echoing through identical minds. As you have seen, sir, everything is on track for full deployment in under 1 home cycle. Thank you, Warden. I have a question, though, and please dumb it down for this old berserker." The Admiral softened his gaze to the Warden. "Why spend so much time conditioning this donor when others broke months before? Think of mental conditioning like paying a mercenary. It is cheap to hire a street thug for a few credits to rough up someone, but if their target has a few extra credits, you will lose that asset just as easily. Replace money with a pattern of stress and reprieve, and you are now conditioning a mind, but the value is still the same. If we break a weak mind, so can the enemy, so can war. A strong mind will break too, but not before it accomplishes our goals. And they will accomplish our goals?" The Warden winced as he tried to hide his offense. "Over 1 million units bred from one of our enemy's most competent warriors and physically superior in every way. They can accomplish anything. 100 clones paraded in the marshalling square, their silent mantra echoing through identical minds as memories play to keep their past alive." "Warden!" The Admiral boomed across the courtyard. "I heard there was an incident. I cannot have any setbacks so close to the invasion." "Lord Admiral." The Warden tried to maintain his composure as the brute came towards him. "Nothing major. A slight issue with the brain of one of the testing units. No other units affected." "Explain?" Ordered the displeased Admiral Unit 3A11. Part of the initial selection group went rogue and was subdued by other units. Scans showed scar tissue had formed around an injury obtained during testing, resulting in an increase in dissonant behavior. Unit has been purged. Are you sure it was from the testing? Yes. Scans performed on other units, and the donor show 100% brain comparison aside from 3A14's damage zone. The Warden was pleased with himself. Tell me, Warden, how? Can the brains be identical to the donors while so much of the body in the clones has been altered? Well, sir, pure cloning takes far too long. 25 home cycles to produce one of these units. What we do here is build units using cloned material. Muscle and bone is easy to understand and can be tinkered with at will, but brains are far too complex. The effects of changing structure are far too unpredictable without studying individual brains, and they cannot be discovered until a unit is constructed. An altered brain may be completely unstable, may not feel pain, may forget to pump the heart, and you wouldn't know until the clone is woken up and either dies or attacks. The Admiral signals his understanding. With those constraints applied, all we can do is copy the existing brain. That's why we insist on only military donors and ensuring full mental conditioning before we harvest the genetic material. Training and conditioning would be more expensive than a traditional army otherwise. Gah! No way the Council would throw any more credits our way for this. If you say they're good to go, then I trust your judgment, Warden. They will be ready for your fleet's arrival in 0.1 home cycles, sir. The equipment has arrived if you would like me to show you to the hangars. 50. Odzern clones watched as alien beings strolled past the barracks, their silent mantra echoing through identical minds as they think of a home they will see once again. Warden! Good to have you with us to witness such a glorious day, cheered the Admiral. My pleasure. Admiral, not long until landfall, I suppose. The Warden tried to act casual as he entered the bridge. Not long. We will destroy the orbital defenses once within range and then put your clones to the test. Admiral, I must admit that I found it quite strange you agreed to their request. We don't usually allow clones the autonomy to choose unit names or insignia. Oh, Warden, I consider it a testament to your work. The unit commander told me the story. Apparently, the prodigal son returns to his home and enacts vengeance on his uncle, the usurper, just like our fables of Emperor Colossal before the Reformation. How appropriate for the prodigal legion to return to Earth and bring forth the reign of its destined rulers. I still feel uneasy. It's against proper protocol. The Warden shifted into his seat nervously. Maybe because you haven't left that floating factory in 5 home cycles. The Warden sighed. The Lord Admiral was right. There was no work left for him to do, and that wasn't a situation he'd been in before. The Admiral looked down to the old scientist to reassure him. Your technicians can handle the deployment of the reserve unit, and the donor isn't going anywhere. For now, just watch as your creation fulfills its purpose. As the orbital defenders came within range and alert sounded from the Warden's datapad. His facility had gone dark. The last transmission was a single string of audio looping endlessly. He looked back across to the monitors supplying feeds from ships all through the fleet. 350,000-hour warriors stood ready for war, their deafening mantra echoing through the communications channels of fleets and planets. I am the wolf in the fox's den. I do what I must and want for nothing. I cannot be broken, for I bend freely. I am the prodigal son, cast from my home, and destined to return. Subscribe, like, and share this channel. Upvote 4, downvote 2, go to comments share.